All right. So there's people who say, "Oh, this guy died," and I'm like, "Well, that was a stupid way to die." And they're like, "Be serious about it." They say like, "This is a serious matter. It's not. It's not amusing." So a lot of times I rant at people because I'm saying like, "Hey, the way you support murder is wrong," and sometimes other people rant and say, "Hey, like murder is wrong." Okay, and there's various different opinions on it. And so here I am to answer what makes murder wrong. So I think there's three things that can make murder wrong. One is killing someone. Two is dismantling their existence. And three is deception. So let me define dismantling their existence. In the case of an organic life form like a human, dismantling their existence would mean shutting their consciousness off and then basically taking apart the hardware of their brain so that it can no longer function. And then once it is non-recoverable, actually, I don't know when. Okay, once the brain activity ceases to function, then they are dead. Now, if someone, so that's killing them. Now, if someone like is revived, right? There's CPR or a defibrillator, then you say it's not a murder. But for the point of my argument, let's postulate that regardless of whether they can regain consciousness afterwards, let's assume let's assume there's no medical attention. Okay, let's just assume there's no medical attention. Okay, so yeah, that simplifies things. So I think the perfect murder is one, the person is willing. Um, so what there's obviously loopholes to that. So the bad would be if you deceive them into being willing to commit suicide. That would be the first bad part of murder. The second bad part of murder is if you're knocking someone unconscious or suffocating them. That is, and then basically letting their brain starve of oxygen, or I don't know, pumping them with a paralysis drug, then that is the second part of murder that's bad because it dismantles their consciousness. And the third part, and now going to sleep like is the same thing, but that's not like intentionally caused by anyone. So I don't know. Maybe that raises some interesting questions. And then the third part of murder is ending their existence. So, assuming there's no medical attention to bring them back, or computer simulation, or maybe a backup of their consciousness stored somewhere that you can boot up on a computer. When you're ending their existence, let's assume that this is a person with only one iteration of existence. So there's no backup copies. You can't copy them onto a computer. You can't teleport them somewhere. It's one person, and there there's no like second iteration or backup iteration, or they're not ever going to wake up. Then in that case, once you make it so that they cannot regain consciousness naturally, then like once you make it so that they never regain consciousness, that is the act of ending their existence, and that's killing them, and that is what most people consider murder, and that's the bad part. And why is it bad? Because well, first off, nobody has the right to do that, but like I don't know, from a humanist perspective, like I wouldn't want to be murdered, and therefore I don't have the right to murder others because I don't want them to do that to me. and it's like this unfathomable horror to have someone else end my existence intentionally. Re Even though like politicians do that all the time, nationally and internationally. But it's I guess that's normalized by the media. Anyways, it's like nobody wants to die, and it just raises all of these existential fears. Um, and so regardless, um, within the context of a functioning society, regardless of how evil or despicable or cruel someone is, no matter how many people they've murdered or tortured, we still don't have individuals don't have the right to to wrought to have wrought out justice. We don't have the right to carry out vigilante justice. We elect people to assign people with the power to do that. There's a justice system. Now that is obviously very like dysfunctional and kind of in the pocket of the upper class in terms of class warfare, and like that's just a the justice system right now is an enabler of class warfare in North America. But like if you don't, if you basically without a functional anarchist ideology, there isn't a viable alternative to the justice system. So um, that's why we have, whether it's in Dwarf Fortress or real life, there's someone assigned to carry out justice, and we present evidence of wrongdoings, and then there's specific, I guess, punishments for each crime so that everyone can be treated the same according to for when they commit a crime. Um, Obviously, that's not the case if you're filthy rich or if you can obstruct justice by hiding evidence, but it is it is nobody's right to end someone else's life, regardless of whether that's an advantageous or moral or preferable thing to do. We just um, it creates too many consequences because it leads to a dysfunctional society where people just discriminate against each other, and violence is the the driving force. Um, but but a lot of people don't, like such as myself, don't want violence to be the driving force behind society. It should be logic, and that's why a justice system is important. Unfortunately, the justice system ignores animal abuse, um, and obviously, meat industry generates a lot of votes for politicians, generates a lot of um, what do you call it? Morale for the plebeians. So, and it's, consumer driven. So I don't think the meat industry is going to be held accountable soon because really it's the consumers paying the people to torture and murder animals who are responsible for the torture and murder going on, because in a consumer-driven society with class warfare going on, you basically have like a slave caste where um, basically they get shittier and shittier working conditions for the people who are torturing these animals because you can always find someone who's desperate enough, whether you look inside the country, outside the country. Um, Apparently, not even the like illegally hired immigrants can want to work with the meat industry and factory farming. So um, I think Monsanto, the way they do it is they basically have someone in a contract and then they change the terms of the contract so that they're going to go bankrupt if they don't torture animals all day, every day for the rest of the next 10, 20 years, the duration of the contract. So I guess Monsanto should just burn like to the ground, literally. That would be, I guess, the best solution for animal rights. I guess they merged with Bayer. Monsanto and Bayer, basically the two companies which popularized chemical warfare. Bayer popularized Nazi white phosphorus in World War II, and Monsanto popularized American Agent Orange in Vietnam. So that's like now those companies merged and they have a monopoly basically on almost all corn, wheat, and soy production in the US. So, oh, and of course it's driven through petro-agriculture, and the factory farming is really ruining our antibiotics. It's already ruined our antibiotics because of superbugs. And it's obviously there's the torture and slaughter of animals inhumanely, but um, all of these like contribute to unsustainable farming with petroagriculture and there's just so much fossil fuel emissions from oil-based fertilizers, oil-based pesticides, or oil-based herbicides or Roundup, if you want to combine pesticides and herbicides. And of course, the cattle have methane emissions. So it's like there's just animal factory farming produces more greenhouse gases than I think all of transportation combined in North America. So that is obviously that obviously is an existential threat to the human race that needs to be ended.